Man, did we have some great games for the holidays. I don't know about y'all, but that was some pretty entertaining Thanksgiving games, along with Sunday, obviously, all the way up till Monday night. I mean, this was a great week of football, a great week for food, and honestly, just I don't know. It was almost a perfect one. Chiefs almost losing again. It feels like that's like every game for the Chiefs. They're gonna win somehow miraculously at the last second. But yeah, let's get into them. Kicking off Thanksgiving morning, we had the Bears going to Detroit. Pretty great game. The Lions were pretty much in control of this game. 16-0 at the end of the first half. It looked like it was going to be a blowout. And then it was 23-0. And then the Bears come all the way back to, pretty much get this game, to make this become a game. It was 23-0. The Bears come down, score 20 unanswered points, make it a one-score game, and ultimately just choke at the end. One of the worst time management things I've ever seen from a head coach. That was horrible. But Caleb Williams had a horrible first half. Second half kind of popped off. 256, 3 touchdowns. Jared Goff, 221, 2 touchdowns. The fact that the Caleb Williams was actually the leading rusher for the Bears just kind of shows what they were doing offensively for most of this game. Montgomery, 88. Jahmyr Gibbs, 87. Pretty similar stats there, except Gibbs had half the amount of carries. DJ Moore, 97 and a touchdown. Keenan Allen, 73 and 2 touchdowns. Their 1 and 2 receivers coming in clutch there. Cole Kmet contributed 26 yards. Moss St. Brown, 73. Tim Patrick, 48. David Montgomery, 36. And Jameson Williams, 28. Ultimately, came down to the last second choke for the Bears coaching staff. I mean, the head coach ended up getting fired for this game, so that was much needed. But man, that was such a brutal loss for the Bears to lose that one on Thanksgiving. Lions almost making an insane choke, but yeah, tough one for the Bears. Next, we had the Giants going into Dallas, and Drew Lock ended up getting the start for this game. Neither quarterback had a great game, but Drew Lock did have, I would say, I don't know. It was a pretty even game in my opinion. Drew Lock did have an interception. He did have a fumble. Cooper Rush did have 195 yards and a touchdown, no turnovers. But Drew Lock had 57 rushing touchdowns with a rushing touchdown added on to that. And honestly, he should have had a second one. So, Drew Lock with one of the worst offensive lines again, is still managing to do pretty solid numbers. I'm a big Drew Lock supporter. He was behind one of the worst offensive lines in Denver with one of the worst offensive coordinators of all time. And then he gets traded with the, Russell Wilson trade and everything. Ends up going to Seattle. Should have started over Geno Smith, in my opinion. Geno Smith gets the start, and, they kind of never really look back there. But yeah, Drew Lock has been behind some of the worst offensive lines, probably throughout his entire football career with the Broncos. Then he goes into Seattle with a rebuilding offensive line with them. And then, gets thrown into the fire here in New York with one of the worst offensive lines again on prime time. So everyone's going to, make judgment calls about how he plays, but he has to play almost on edge every single time because he has one of the worst offensive lines in the league, and he's getting thrown in, with pretty much scraps. But, well, not really scraps, I'd say, but with an offensive line that can't give him enough time, plus he has to gain chemistry with some of the guys that obviously he didn't get during minicamp and stuff. That sucks. That really sucks. But This game was close. Honestly, it looked like it was going to be going down to overtime, and then the Giants just turn it over and kind of just end the game. But, yeah. You can see here, Rico Dowdle, probably his best game of the year, 112 and a touchdown. Zeke is averaging probably a handful or less carries each week. Teron Tracy, 32 and a touchdown. Neighbors, 69. Theo Johnson, 54 for the tight end. And Tracy again for 33. Wandale was nowhere to be seen for only 6 yards. Turpin, 53. Jalen Tolbert, 41. CeeDee Lamb, 39. And Brandon Cooks had his first touchdown, I believe, of the year. So this was a close game, pretty entertaining. Obviously, division rivals. Big one for the Cowboys. Sucks for Drew Lock. Next, we had the last Thanksgiving game with the the Dolphins going into Green Bay. This was pretty much a blowout from the get-go. The Dolphins, once again, cannot win in cold weather. Tua, 365, 2 touchdowns. Had a great game. Jordan Love, 274, 2 touchdowns. Also had a great game. 39 total rushing yards for the Dolphins, to Josh Jacobs having 43 and a touchdown. And he went absolutely... What was it here? There it is. Jonnu Smith, 113. The tight end is leading the Dolphins in receiving. Tyreek Hill, 83 and a touchdown. Devon Achane, 56 and a touchdown. Jalen Waddle, 53 yards. Tucker Kraft, 78. Josh Jacobs, 74. Christian Watson, 67. Dontavian Wicks, 30. And Jaden Reed, 24. This was just a standard blowout. As it was only 13 points, but it always felt like the Packers were just completely in control of this game and not really letting the Dolphins get an opportunity. With that being said, this was probably the worst game out of the 3 for Thanksgiving. It kind of sucks that they, left this one for the end. I didn't really think this game was going to be like it was, but pretty disappointing game. Nothing really to go on here. Next, we had a lone Friday game on Black Friday, with the Raiders going to Kansas City and almost upsetting the Chiefs in one of the most improbable games of the season. The Raiders down, tons of injuries, Chiefs going into this game very healthy, and almost losing this game. This game came down to a last-second mishap on the center and Aiden O'Connell, which ended up giving the Chiefs the ball and ultimately winning the game. The Raiders were about to kick up to around a 40-something yard field goal with one of the best kickers, I think, so far in this league, at least in the AFC. With, the wind on his side, this was easily going to be a very favorable field goal for the Raiders to win this game. But, of course, somehow the football just magically has to bounce in the Chiefs' direction. And the Chiefs win another one-score game. Aiden O'Connell, 340, 2 touchdowns, had a pretty decent game. Patrick Mahomes, 306, 1 touchdown, also had a decent game. Raiders have no-name running backs, and they're out here putting up more than Isaiah Pacheco and Kareem Hunt combined. Pretty pathetic. Brock Bowers, 140 and a touchdown, had an amazing game. Jacoby Myers, 97. No touchdowns. Trey Tucker had a 58-yard touchdown. Hopkins had 90 yards. Kelsey had 68. Noah Gray, 58. And Xavier Worthy had 54. Justin Watson had the lone touchdown throw, a 6-yarder. But yeah, this just came down to the last seconds. Ultimately, just letting the Chiefs win this game is just super frustrating. But, at the end of the day, it just proves more and more that the Chiefs can't keep up with some of these low-caliber type teams. And in my opinion, there shouldn't be a reason why they win the Super Bowl this year. It's just impossible. I can't see them doing that. But, NFL loves the Chiefs, so we might get a three-peat, just for them to rub it in our faces, that they can control the league. So they might do a three-peat just for, numbers and whatnot. But I feel like if the Chiefs three-peat, there's just going to be a lot of controversy in my opinion, just because of how close all these games were. So many little things went in their favor. No penalties being really called on the Chiefs. They're like the second or third least penalized team. Yeah, it's tough, man. It's really tough watching the Chiefs win each week these games that they shouldn't win. But yeah, hopefully that changes when they play some, high caliber type teams, and we'll see what goes from there. Next, we had a game that was a little bit of a shocker to me. The Chargers going into Atlanta and beating the Falcons at home. I was expecting the Falcons, to be well rested, more motivated to come back and try to make this late playoff push to try and, win this division out. And they might still win the division, but I would feel like they would come in this game with a little bit more fire. And instead, they don't. Justin Herbert, 147, no touchdowns, no picks. Didn't have a great game. Kirk Cousins, 245, 4 picks. The Chargers had 56 total rushing yards. Bijan had 102 and a touchdown. And 16 with Tyler Allinger. McConkey, 117, pretty much the only receiver that did anything. Ray McLeod, 95, Drake London, 86, with Bijan also getting 33. The defense and Kirk Cousins picks, this is a game they have to win, and I don't see how they lose this game. This game was a lot closer than it should have been. The Chargers should have blew out the Falcons, but the fact that the Falcons still had a chance with 4 turnovers is pretty remarkable. Either way, just a disgusting, brutal loss for the Falcons, and Chargers got lucky here. Next, we have the Steelers going into Cincinnati. Russell Wilson, 414, 3 touchdowns and a pick. Never once had that type of game with the Broncos, so I'm not really sure where all this is coming from. Joe Burrow, 309, 3 touchdowns and a pick. Najee Harris, 75 and a touchdown. With Chase Brown, 70 and a touchdown. Pretty similar stats there. George Pickens, 74 and a touchdown. Pat Fairmouth had a touchdown as well. Calvin Austin had that 3rd touchdown. Jamar Chase, 86 yards and a touchdown. T. Higgins, 69 and a touchdown. Kind of get T. Higgins going there. He's not going to be a Bengal for long. And Andre Losavias. I don't even know how to say the dude's name. But I believe this is his 2nd year. He has a touchdown as well. So the fact that the Bengals can score this many points and their defense is just this terrible that they can't make one stop. You can't let the Steelers score double-digit points in 2 quarters. You can't do that. Yeah, man, the Steelers offense just completely overpowered the Bengals defense. One of the worst defenses, I think, in the league. So I can't really see the Bengals do anything. If they somehow make the playoffs, I don't see how they can do that. But the Steelers, man, they're low-key, man. They're very low-key. 9-3. Very low-key team. But, yeah, this was a shootout for sure. And surprisingly, Russell Wilson comes out on top. Next, we have the Cardinals going into Minnesota. This was a pretty close game. Kyler Murray didn't have a great game, though. 260, a touchdown and 2 picks. Sam Darnold, 2 touchdowns, 235. James Conner, 68. Kyler Murray had 48 rushing yards. The rushing game could not get going for the Vikings here. 68 total rushing yards, and 22 of those came from Sam Darnold. Trey McBride, 96. Marvin Harrison Jr., 60 and a touchdown. Michael Wilson, 55. Justin Jefferson, 99. Addison, 54. And Aaron Jones had the lone touchdown catch at the end of the game to just kind of seal this win. But, man, Aaron Jones was not doing great. He had a fumble early. Wasn't really getting the rock. He finished with 22 rushing yards. And then he catches that touchdown, which is, that's big. Didn't do it that much else besides that, but obviously none of the running backs did. But yeah, still a solid game between all of them there. Defense was pretty strong for the Vikings here. Kind of held it down. But yeah, this was a close game, down to the wire. Tough loss for the Cardinals, and another close win for the Vikings here. Next, we have the Colts going into New England. And if you would have told 2009 me that the Colts Patriots would be a very boring game, in 2024, man, I would have looked at you crazy. But yeah, this game was close, very down to the wire. Anthony Richardson kind of saved his starter position, I feel like, with this game. Big fourth quarter, last second drive there. Anthony Richardson finished with 109, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks. Not a great game at all. Drake made 238, touchdown and a pick. Also not a great game, but he also is a rookie. People forget that he is a rookie quarterback who doesn't have a lot of playing time yet. Jonathan Taylor, 96. Anthony Richardson had 48 and a touchdown. Literally no one else ran the ball. That's crazy. Ronmore Stevenson, 73. Antonio Gibson, 62 and a touchdown. Pittman had 42 leading, and Alec Pierce had the last second touchdown there at the end with 16 yards. Hunter Henry, 75. Austin Hooper, 42. Both tight ends leading the receiving core. That's just how bad these Patriots receivers are. And the last second coaching decision to go for it on 2, man, I would not have went for it in that situation, just because you're very close to being able to, make the playoffs potentially. And, if you lose that game, then you're out of the playoffs for sure. So pretty risky, but, Anthony Richardson came in clutch and, ended up making it in there. So big shout out to him and getting the Colts this victory over the Patriots at home. Pretty great feeling for them. Next, we got the Seahawks going to New York to play the Jets, and this game looked like it was going to be very close. 21-16 at the end of the first half. Jets leading. You would think that they were going to end up, getting the dub here, and the Seahawks just kind of, turn it up in the second half and just kind of get going. Geno Smith, 206 and a touchdown. Aaron Rodgers, 185, 2 touchdowns and a pick. Kenneth Walker, Zach Charbonnet only combined for 77 total yards and a touchdown. Breece Hall, Breland Allen combined for 71, no touchdowns. Jackson Smith-Njigba, 74 yards. Devontae Adams, 66 and a touchdown. Isaiah Davis had the other catching touchdown. A.J. Barner had the one lone catching touchdown for the Seahawks. Defensively, the Seahawks went crazy, stopping and shutting out the Jets the second half to be able to let the Seahawks come back and win. Honestly, just a great game for the Seahawks, and another brutal loss for the Jets, who have one of the worst records in the league and one of the best rosters, I feel like. So we'll see what they do in the offseason, because this is going to be a very interesting team. Players are going to be moved around. I feel like Breece Hall is not going to stay in New York Jet, but we'll see. We'll definitely see. Next is a blowout. The Titans going into Washington. Not really going to touch a lot on this game. Defensively, the Titans have probably one of the worst defenses in my personal opinion, and going up against one of the most kind of hot teams in the league. You kind of could tell how this game was going to go. Rushing, 267 yards for the Commanders, only 35 for the Titans. 210 passing yards for the Titans, and 196 for the Commanders. But obviously 3 touchdowns and a pick. Nick Westbrook-Hine led with 61 yards, 2 touchdowns, and McLaurin 73 with 2 touchdowns. Zach Ertz had the other touchdown as well. Zach Ertz is kind of balling out for the Commanders. I don't know if anyone's kind of realized that, but he's been a sleeper for being actually pretty decent. Calvin Ridley, 45 yards. Can y'all believe that they have Tyler Boyd, Calvin Ridley, and at one point plus DeAndre Hopkins, and they could not do anything with that? That's insane. But like I said, nothing really to go off of. Commanders just scored a bunch of points. Titans could not do anything this game. Next, we have the Texans going to Jacksonville for almost getting upset by one of the worst teams in the league. Stroud, 242 and a touchdown. Mac Jones, 235 and 2 touchdowns, no picks. Trevor Lawrence did get hurt this game. and ended up getting a concussion off of looks like a dirty play. My personal opinion, I don't think quarterbacks should be allowed to slide. I feel like because they can slide, they're getting more injured because of that. Anyways, whole different topic. Joe Mixon, 101 and a touchdown. Travis Etienne, 46 yards and a touchdown. No touchdowns. And Tank Bigsby, 28. Nico Collins, 119. Dalton Schultz had 61 and a touchdown. Parker Washington had 103 and a touchdown, with Brian Thomas Jr., 76 and a touchdown. This game was just close. A lot of field goals. And, man, I mean, it was a very boring game, to be honest. A lot of these drives, the Texans could have finished with a touchdown, and they end up either getting nothing or a field goal. But either way, close division win. Big win for the Texans. Pretty meaningless loss, honestly, for the Jags. Next, we had the Rams going into New Orleans and almost losing a game that they easily should have won. Matthew Stafford, 183, 2 touchdowns. Derek Carr, 184 and 1 touchdown. Kyron Williams, 104 and a touchdown running. Alvin Kamara, 112, no touchdowns. Puka had 56. DeMarcus Robinson had 49 and a touchdown. Taysom Hill tried to have another crazy game, ends up getting hurt pretty bad, and looks like he's going to be out the rest of the season. Marquez Valdez-Scantling, 36 yards and a touchdown. But, yeah, this was a pretty brutal loss for the Saints. Almost an upset for them. Rams keeping the playoff hopes alive. Maybe a sleeper team if they manage to get in the playoffs, but I don't really see them doing anything, upsetting any big teams, but we'll see. But yeah, good win for the Rams here. Next, we have the Buccaneers going into Carolina and winning a very close overtime game, and another brutal loss for the Panthers in a game that I feel like they should have won. Baker didn't play that great. 235, a touchdown, 2 picks. Bryce Young, 298 and a touchdown. Bucky Irving went crazy with 152 and a touchdown. Chuba Hubbard, 43. Jonathan Brooks, 18. Kind of got his first couple of carries for the season there, and Bryce Young ran it in for a touchdown. Mike Evans, 118 and a touchdown. Adam Thielen, 99 and a touchdown. Really, really surprised that he did not get traded this season, but I can't see him on the team next year. There's no way. And Xavier Legette, 53. Tommy Tremble, tight end, 77. This game came down to the very end. Ultimately, Chuba Hubbard makes a brutal fumble and gives the Buccaneers perfect field position, and they end up winning the game. But, this game was very winnable for the Panthers, and just slipped away at the very end. Tough division loss, and very lucky win for the Buccaneers. Next, we had a very anticipated Sunday night matchup. 3 o'clock game, for the Eagles and Ravens. Jalen Hurts, 118 and a touchdown, no picks. Not a great game at all. Lamar had 237, 2 touchdowns, no picks. And a lot of that was in the fourth quarter. Saquon, 107 and a touchdown. Jalen Hurts had 29 and a touchdown. Derrick Henry, 82, no touchdowns, with Lamar, 79. A.J. Brown, 66, no touchdowns. And Dallas Goedert had the lone receiving touchdown with 35 yards. Zay Flowers led the Ravens in receiving yards with 74. Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely both got touchdowns for this game. Lamar Jackson on the final drive, they were already they were down. They can't really do much. But the Ravens go down, score a garbage time touchdown, and that literally lost me my fantasy league for this week. And my fantasy team, for this week. On just a garbage go-ahead score, pointless touchdown. Brutal. Very, very brutal. But, good win for the Eagles. Advance to 10-2. We will see if they can, battle the Lions for that first seed. Next, we had a very, very boring Sunday night with the 49ers going into Buffalo, getting absolutely destroyed Brock Purdy, 94, no touchdowns, no picks. Josh Allen, 148, 2 touchdowns, no picks. Had a pretty decent game. Jordan Mason, 78, McCaffrey, 53, ends up going down, re-injures something in that leg. And Gorendo had 19 and a touchdown. James Cook, 107, Ray Davis, 63 and a touchdown. Josh Allen, 18 and 1 touchdown. Juwan Jennings becomes pretty much the number one receiver, honestly, at this point, overtaking Debo with 56. And Dawson Knox actually led the team in receiving with 56 as well, with one of the catches being 39 yards. But, this game was just in the snow, a lot of running, and just a slowly, methodically played game by the Bills, and just honestly a blowout. Nothing really to go off of here. Next, we had Game of the Week. If you did not watch this game, go watch the highlights. This game was back and forth, action-packed, tons of scoring, tons of big defensive plays and stops. This was a great game. Jameis Winston, 497, 4 touchdowns and 3 picks. Bo Nix, 294, touchdown and 2 picks. One of the picks was not necessarily his fault. The other one definitely was. Jerome Ford, 41 yards. Nick Chubb, only 21, and a garbage time touchdown, which also helped me lose my fantasy for the week. And Jaleel McLaughlin, 84 rushing yards, had a crazy big game. Javonte Williams only had 4 carries for 1 yard and had a touchdown. Pretty crazy. Jerry Jeudy went off. Never had a game like that when he was with us. I'm not sure where this Jerry Jeudy and Russell Wilson, big day was, or big week was when we needed them. But yeah, he had 9 catches, 235, and a touchdown. And honestly, if we put Pat Surtain on him and just shadowed him the whole game, we wouldn't even have made this game as close as it was. Marvin Mims, 105 and a touchdown with a 93-yard touchdown. Sutton, 102. And Elijah Moore also had a triple-digit day with 111. David Njoku, 52 yards and 2 touchdowns, with Nick Chubb having a garbage time. Not really a garbage time, but a catching touchdown as well. Defensively, this was an insane game. The defense for the Broncos was just getting after it and making big plays left and right. We had 2 pick sixes, one at the very end. All the Browns had to do was go down, get in the field goal range, run the clock out, and they win the game with the last second field goal. Instead, we go out there and get a pick 6 and close this game out. Pretty remarkable. Previous years, this is a game the Broncos lose 100% of the time. This team is different. We have better culture, I feel like, and just a winning mindset. And we make these plays when we need to. We weren't doing that in the beginning of the season, but we're starting to make them now. And this was a game where we should have easily won. This game shouldn't have been as close as it was, but man, was it a entertaining, close game. Will we make the playoffs? Maybe. We're 8-5 going into our bye week. We have a chance. We really do have a chance. I can't believe I'm saying that in December. But we'll see how it plays out. But man, I really hope we can make the playoffs and end this disgusting 9-year drought. Well, that was all for Week 13. Obviously, like I said, there were some great games. But let's get on to these Week 14 predictions. Thursday, we have Green Bay going into Detroit. I feel like this game can go pretty much either way. I wouldn't be surprised if your team wins, but I'm going to have Detroit winning this one. For Sunday, we have the Jags going into Tennessee. I have the Titans winning that game. I just feel like they're going to be able to beat Mac Jones. I just can't really see how they lose that. The Jets going into Miami. I have the Dolphins winning that easily. Falcons going into Minnesota. I do have the Vikings beating them pretty easily as well. Saints going into New York. This is a toss-up. This can go either way. I'm going with my boy Drew Lock. Hopefully he can take advantage of that New Orleans Saints weak and injured team. Panthers going into Philly. Obviously the Eagles got that. Browns going into Pittsburgh. I have the Steelers win that. I just feel like they can't bounce back in time on a short week after that type of game. Brutal loss. I feel like the Steelers are going to take advantage of that coming off their bye. Well, not really coming off their bye, but they'll have an extra day of rest compared to the Browns. The Raiders going into Tampa Bay, have the Buccaneers winning that. Seahawks going into Arizona, have the Seahawks. They beat them in the beginning of the season. I can see them doing it again. Bills going into LA. This could go either way. I'm sticking with the Bills though. I wouldn't be surprised if the Rams win that. Bears going into San Francisco. I have the Bears winning that. I feel like the 49ers are just a very injured team right now. I'm going for the upset there. Chargers going into Kansas City. I'm picking the Chiefs. I mean, until they lose, I feel like it's just impossible for them to lose. For me to pick them against them at this moment. Bengals going into Dallas. Got the Bengals winning that. I just can't see how Dallas can keep up with that type of high-powered offense, even if the Bengals defense does suck. Either way, guys, hopefully you guys enjoyed. And I will get into these next week's games. These should be some pretty entertaining games as well. So, yeah, sucks that the Broncos are on bye, along with the Colts, Texans, Ravens, Commanders, and the Patriots. Some big-name teams there, but, yeah, short week. We'll see what happens. I'll see y'all next video.